Thanks, Kieran O'Donnell. I want to contribute at this stage, but it's in the context of I met with publicans in Limerick City a short time ago. The main request they have is that they can reopen. I must be looking at different legislation to many others, because when I read this particular section 3, it specifically makes reference to that in section 3.1a, the purpose of giving a direction. So my understanding is that the Gardaí will give a warning to the publicans if they are in breach to comply. And if that's what gives certainty around being able to reopen the pubs, I'm satisfied with that. Extra Garda powers, you have to question it, but if it's been brought in the context of it allows the pubs to reopen, and that would be in conjunction with a roadmap, and I'd ask the Minister that the roadmap in terms of reopening of pubs, that's due to come out on the 13th, that should be brought out as quickly as possible, should be engaging with the publicans themselves. And many of these are family publicans. These are family pubs that they've handed from generation, many of them set up, they're young entrepreneurs, male and female, and this is their life's work. They're absolutely, genuinely petrified their businesses will not come back. So anything that assists in pubs being able to reopen in a safe manner, I support, and I believe this particular legislation will do that. Secondly, the issues that arose with the publicans are, if they're required to comply, the supports must be put in place. I welcome the fact there has been an increase in the restart grant for them. That may not be sufficient. Many of them have been closed for many months. The areas that came up with the publicans were around the cost they've incurred while they've been closed, access to the Microfinance Ireland Fund has been reopened. I welcome that. But it's the question of will the loans particularly fit the requirements of publicans. Serious concerns around being able to get insurance. Also the issue in terms of the certainty. So I think the next steps must be now about ensuring that the publicans, the length and breadth of Ireland, and I think there is a contradiction where at the moment, hard to justify, where we have pubs that can serve food being able to reopen, and in many cases your wet pub up and down the country, who probably on a weeknight would probably meet social distancing requirements anyway in a normal course of events. So what I'm looking at here, and I hear many others today, many who I respect on a personal level, but speaking about, the Healy Rays, the Michael Collins and others, speaking about that these are draconian measures. These are measures to enable pubs to reopen. I want to be able to go back to the publicans in Limerick City and say to them, and Limerick County and North Tipperary, that we are now providing a roadmap so your pubs can reopen. It's not about where your pubs can be closed overnight. If people, and there will be a teething period, Minister, I think it's hugely important that these particular new powers would be done in a way in the early stage that allow pubs to adapt, that Gardaí are allowed under the legislation to work with the publicans to make them compliant, because in many cases publicans may not be fully aware in the early stage that they're non-compliant. There needs to be education around that whole area. But above everything else, I think it's hugely important that the publicans be given an opportunity pretty quickly to be able to reopen. That's coming on basis, and that I look in this legislation as a means to do that. With any legislation, it cannot be used if you go to any section of legislation, it always has draconian measures in there. It's the initial measures, it's the warning aspects are the key element for me for the legislation. I want to see the roadmap on the reopening of pubs, those guidelines published quickly, and I would like to see the pubs being able to reopen very shortly. I think it's hugely important, both economically for the publicans themselves, socially for people, many people who are not able to get out at night, who in many cases the pub was their social outlet to meet their friends I think that's being missed, and I think it will provide a huge benefit to communities where in many cases, and we're speaking about it, the mental health issues, people getting out, meeting with people, conversing with people. The pub was an environment that allowed that to take place. And then finally, Minister, I think we have to look at, relook at the support measures being provided to publicans. They have now been shut and their premises shut for the bones of 5 months. They want to get back up and running. I think it supports around grants. It's also a support. Someone made reference to the moratorium finishing in September around a deferral on repayments. We need to look at that again. We need to look at other measures for cheap, inexpensive loans to be provided to publicans. We need to ensure that they qualify for insurance. So for me, I support this legislation. The sunset clause, and everyone speaking about this as if this is a long-term measure. This is a measure over a 9-week period, so we can bring in supports in place to ensure the public can reopen. They're entitled, in my view, to be given that opportunity to reopen. This particular measure will assist in that, amongst others. Thank you.